Nathan sat alone in his workshop, surrounded by the gentle ticking of clocks and the hum of gears. The walls were lined with shelves crowded by timepieces of all shapes and sizes, each one lovingly crafted by his own hands over a lifetime. He took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar smell of wood polish, old leather, and faint traces of oil. Time, as far as he was concerned, was not an abstract concept, but a tangible presence, something he could shape, measure, and hold in his hands. Yet in recent years Nathan had felt as if time were slipping through his fingers. He'd given his life to this craft, devoted endless hours to restoring broken mechanisms and making each piece as precise as possible, but now in his quiet retirement he couldn't shake the feeling that he had been deceiving himself. Time was not something to be controlled. It was a river, constantly flowing, slipping past his reach no matter how tightly he tried to hold on. One rainy afternoon, just as he was about to close up shop, the bell over the door jingled. A young man stepped inside, holding something wrapped in a worn cloth. He looked around the dim workshop, eyes wide as if he'd stepped into a forgotten world. "Are you the watchmaker?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of awe. Nathan gave a nod, his gaze settling on the bundle in the man's hands. "I am. What have you brought me?" The young man unwrapped the cloth to reveal an old tarnished pocket watch. It was an odd piece, not one Nathan had ever seen before. The watch's glass was cracked, its face scratched, and the hands appeared to be moving in reverse. "It belonged to my grandfather," the young man explained. "He told me it was special, but it's broken now. I was hoping you could fix it." Nathan examined the watch, his fingers tracing the worn engraving on the case, a curious symbol he didn't recognize. Something about the watch felt strange, almost unsettling, as though it held secrets hidden within its gears, but he was intrigued. "I'll see what I can do," Nathan replied, taking the watch carefully. The young man thanked him and left, leaving Nathan alone once more with his newfound mystery. Over the next few days, Nathan worked on the pocket watch, attempting to understand its unusual mechanism. It defied convention, its gears and springs arranged in ways that shouldn't work, yet somehow did. As he tinkered with it, he found himself drifting back through his own memories, almost as if the watch were drawing him in. On the third evening, as he adjusted the watch's balance spring, a strange thing happened. The ticking of the watch grew louder, filling the room, and suddenly Nathan found himself standing in his childhood home. He could hear his mother humming in the kitchen, smell the faint aroma of bread baking. It was as if he'd been transported back to that exact moment in time. Dazed, he looked around, trying to make sense of it. The familiar workshop walls were gone, replaced by the comforting, dusty glow of his childhood living room. He stared down at his hands, which were now small and chubby, the hands of a child. "Mom?" he called out, but his voice came out high-pitched and thin. The vision blurred, then dissolved as quickly as it had appeared. Nathan blinked, finding himself back in his workshop, the pocket watch ticking softly in his hand. His heart raced as he tried to understand what had just happened. As he continued working on the watch, these visions became more frequent. Each time he adjusted a piece of the mechanism, he was transported to another moment from his past. One night, he found himself on the riverbank, where he'd shared his first kiss, the cool breeze ruffling his hair, and the nervous thrill of that memory flooding his senses. Another time, he was at his wedding, watching his young bride laugh as they danced under starlit skies. Each vision felt more real than the last, but each left him with a growing sense of unease. These weren't just memories. They felt like second chances, alternate lives unfolding before him. He began to realize that the watch wasn't merely taking him back to relive these moments. It was inviting him to reconsider them, to see the choices he hadn't made, the paths he hadn't taken. As the days passed, Nathan grew more and more obsessed with the watch. He hardly slept, spending every waking hour bent over his workbench, his mind tangled in memories that weren't quite his own. He saw himself as a younger man, choosing to travel the world rather than settle down. He glimpsed a life where he'd pursued art instead of watchmaking, becoming a painter with colors on his hands instead of oil and dust. Each memory was bittersweet, a glimpse into what might have been. But with every vision, he also felt a deepening sense of regret. He thought of the people he'd hurt, the opportunities he'd missed, the ways he'd closed himself off from the world. Time, it seemed, was not a series of fixed moments, but a fluid, ever-shifting landscape, one he could explore but never fully grasp. One night, as he adjusted the final piece of the watch, he found himself in the most vivid vision yet. He was standing in a field, the sky wide and star-strewn above him. His father stood beside him, a man long since passed, looking as young and strong as Nathan remembered him. "Why are you here, Dad?" Nathan asked, his voice breaking. His father looked at him, his eyes filled with a warmth Nathan hadn't seen in years. "I've always been here, son. I'm a part of you, just as every moment you've lived is a part of you. You can't change the past, Nathan, but you can learn from it. Time isn't something you can control. It's something you have to live with." The words resonated deep within Nathan, striking a chord he hadn't known existed. As he blinked, the field dissolved, and he was back in his workshop, the watch complete in his hand. It was ticking normally now, moving forward in the way it should. Nathan sat in silence, staring at the pocket watch. He realized that he had spent his life trying to master time, to make it conform to his will. But time was more than minutes and hours. It was memories, choices, and missed chances. It was the people he'd loved and lost, the moments he'd cherished, and those he'd let slip by. But as he set the watch down, something stopped him. The ticking sounded slightly off, almost like a whisper, faint and strange. He picked it up again, his heart racing as he adjusted the winding mechanism one last time. There was a soft click, and he looked down at the watch's face, only to see his own reflection staring back at him, not as he was, but older, with a strange, unreadable expression. His reflection seemed to shift, almost as if it were moving independently, a future self holding a knowledge he could neither access nor ignore. Nathan blinked, and the reflection vanished. The watch lay silent in his hand, its mechanisms still. He felt a chill, as if the room had grown darker, the ticking of the surrounding clocks fading into a hollow quiet. He set the watch down, unsettled, feeling as though he'd glimpsed something he wasn't meant to see. Was it a trick of the light? Or had he been shown a path he had yet to walk? The questions lingered in the silence, heavy and unanswerable, as the room filled once more with the soft, steady ticking of clocks that seemed, for the first time, to hold secrets he could never unravel.